what is going on, everyone? How you feeling out there? What's the word? Alright, we are here, we are in, and all of that jazz. How you guys doing out there? I am your host, Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and welcome to the dark side of the room. Now, this is the show where we talk about various things, alright? We talk about games and a whole bunch of other stuff, mainly hobbies, escapism, things like that, that actually make our lives a little bit more, I would say, worth living. 'Cause let's face it, we got jobs, we got kids and mortgage payments, and you name it. We got all these other things that keep us busy during about our day, and our question can sometimes add up to, I'm working this hard all the time, what am I working for? And the answer is stuff that makes ya happy. So that is some of the stuff that we are going to be talking about on this show, because this is the stuff that we talk about on the show pretty much all of the time. So with all that, I gotta say thank you guys for showing up. Thank you guys very much for being here. I love this whole show. I'm still working on a couple of other things, just a couple other things, to make it easier for people to do the thing and all that stuff. But we are, like I said, we are continuing to make stuff go and all of that jazz. So thank you guys for being here. And this is the part of the day where I start begging you guys. Number one, here's a link right here to the Discord server, alright? Because I love talking to you guys about stuff and all of that jazz. I'm going to put one over here in the YouTubes, because I like them tubes. Look at all that. And of course, well, you know, this is the time where I go, alright guys, reach out to me over on the Discord server. If you guys got any questions or comments, I actually get around to those pretty quick and all that stuff. I want to give a major thanks to Funky95 and JTB0486, my new followers, and all of that jazz. There's also a bunch of people I want to thank for being here and all of that jazz. But before I even get started with all of that jazz, I want to make it very clear to you and yours and all that jazz that we could really use some folks coming over in the old Patreon over there. And if you want to do that, that's easy. Just scroll down below this if you're watching it on Twitch, or if you're watching it on YouTube. Hey, guess what? Oh, in the description below, you will find a link to patreon.com/BID_P. I'm doing a couple of things. I'm getting rid of the $1 tier, and I'm just folding that stuff into the $5 tier because, well, how can I put it? You know, $5 a month, that ain't a whole lot to ask for and all that jazz. So I'm just going to be asking for it directly. And of course, we got merch. If y'all like shopping, all that jazz, check it out. Oh my god, look, we have merch from TeePublic. Now, when you guys get here, you'll be able to see these things. It will be t-shirts, but guess what? They come in kids t-shirts. Oh, look at that, kids t-shirts. Notebooks, I'm a real big fan of, especially for y'all that are like me and make lists and all that. Of course, you know, we got our COVID masks happening on that jazz. Or, you know what? Let's not call them COVID masks. Let's just call them masks, alright? And they look pretty awesome, alright? I like the mask. And of course, my favorite are them coffee mugs, y'all. Them coffee mugs. That's right. And we got a sale going right now, at least for the next 7 or 8 hours happening on that. So now that we've got all that stuff going, I gotta give a major shout out to my patrons, being Shannon Boom Boom Play. Oh, the music is too loud. Alright, fine, I'll turn it down. Jeez, the music is loud. Alright, there you go. How's that? So yeah. Oh, my voice is a little low. Music is loud, voice is low. Oh, I see what happened there. Yeah, something touched my thing. So my equipment is being a little wonky. This happens every year around this time. But, we're getting that going. But yeah, so we got all that jazz going, and we got a whole lot of other fun stuff happening. Like I said, if you guys like any of that stuff, then you should totally check out the merch store and all of that jazz. I'm leaving a link for it right here. Yeah, leaving a link for it right here in the chat for y'all. Hey, look at that. Chat on both channels, because yeah, I love doing the multi-channel thing. I actually do. That's not sarcasm, like, at all. Anyway, so now that we got all that stuff going, apologize for running a little late. I had a lot of adjustments to do. I'm trying to get better video quality for you guys. Like, everything was working pretty good before the crash of last week, and now I'm just trying to get everything back to a standard that I can deal with. All right, so now that we got all that going, let's have a little bit of a talk. All right, and when I say a little bit of a talk, I mean just a little bit of a talk. All right, because yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that we like to do. We like playing games and all that stuff. And a question that I get quite often, from people is, how do I know what game is for me? I don't know. Like, there's so many of these things out there, from 3.5 systems to 5th edition games to the World of Darkness. I mean, there's just so much. And literally, I just shouted out the big three. That is not an exaggeration. All right. So how do we determine? Well, I could actually do the 21st century thing of telling you guys which ones suck, which ones aren't worth your time, and why the most popular one isn't for you because it sucks and all that stuff. But that's not what we do here, right? We want to talk about a lot of the good stuff, that's out there. Okay, as you guys know, if you're longtime watchers of the channel, I play and run maybe 11 systems. All right, 11 systems. We're talking 5th edition systems like Esper Genesis and D&D 5th edition. I run 3rd edition systems like Dungeons and Dragons, Midnight, a bunch of stuff from AEG. I also run Call of Cthulhu D20, which was a 3.5 system for the people that knew 3.5. I also run Call of Cthulhu along with Savage Worlds and Mutants and Masterminds and Denominate and the White Wolf games, be it World of Darkness, or they're on Express now, but we're talking the World of Darkness games. But that consists of regular World of Darkness, Hunter, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf, whatever it is they call it, all of the noun the verbings and noun the adjectives, so we're talking 5 or 6 games in that. I've also been known to run Paranoia. There was another game from Heresy Press 20 years ago called Victoriana that I run. There is so many games that I run. And, those are just tabletop role-playing games. We're also talking tabletop minis games like Stargrave, Rangers of Shadow Deep, Frostgrave, got the one-page rule stuff, being Grimdark Future and Grimdark Firefight, along with Age of Fantasy and Age of Fantasy Skirmish, along with thank you, Neon Arlecchino, HeroClix, D&D just as a tabletop war game. Okay, those are just combat scenarios, along with Battletech and War Machine. There are so many different games I play. There's a reason I have a 3D printer farm. Okay, and it's not just merch, y'all. Not just merch. Anyway, so the question is, how do we determine what game is good for us? And no, I didn't even touch on the collectible card games. All right. So how do we determine what games are for us? There are just so many out there. A girth, if you will, of different games that we can play, we can choose, but they tend to have one major thing in common, and that is money. How much money do they cost? How much community is each one going to have going? You know, how much? That is the question. Am I going to be spending my money? Am I going to be spending my money and my time investing in this game? You know, and can I convince people to play with me? You know, that is a really tough one. That really is. And let's not talk about show is how to choose your game. So the really big question, really big question out there is, you know, can I convince people to play with me and all that jazz? Oh, crud. All right, that's a lot better. Sorry about that, guys. I dropped my keyboard and it threw my computer into snooze mode. So we're getting on to that, and yeah. So when it comes down to all that, the real question is, how do I make this choice? Will I have a community? How much work versus reward am I going to get from this? I mean, that is a cool thing. You know, that whole thing is just big, man. It's something that I, over the years, have had to contend with in a lot of different ways. Okay, a lot of different ways. So let's break down the 4 main types of games that aren't video games that you might come into. All right, we've got board games, card games, tabletop miniatures games, tabletop role-playing games. Those are the 4 major categories. You go into any game store, and those are the 4 that you're going to see if you're not walking into, say, a GameStop. All right. Even when you go to Target, they have D&D there. They, at one point, I think they carried like Warhammer type games, not Necromunda, but I forgot the name of the game. But there's a lot of stuff there, and a lot of board games really skirt that line of tabletop miniatures games. I'm talking things like Zombicide, Pandemic, Fallout, and a whole bunch of other games that you can find all over the internet. Like, if you go on Kickstarter, you will drown. You will absolutely drown. So the question that comes up, and it comes up the most, is, how do I pick one? Well, every single game that you have comes down to a genre and an age range, okay? And this is the third category, okay? You ready for that third category? C or C. That is cooperative or competitive. All right? Whenever I see someone or I meet someone who's interested in games in general and types of games that people might want to play, I kind of give them a questionnaire. You know, I really do. I give them sort of a questionnaire. Like, what kind of games do you generally like to play? Which ones did you grow up on that you enjoyed? Okay? Most people grew up on the big 3: Monopoly, Life, and Sorry. You know, some had Candyland, some had chess. You know, there's always going to be 1 or 2 exceptions, all right? But, you know, honestly, the biggest 2, take away Sorry and put in Scrabble, you know. But yeah, Monopoly, Scrabble, the two most popular board games worldwide that aren't chess. But they all of those games have one thing in common, and that is they are competitive games. Okay, there's a game of me versus you, and there shall be only one. There can be only one. You know, so what do you do with that? You know, what do you do with that? How do you do that? In so many different games. Now, one of my favorite board games. Okay, I have two board games that I just swear by. And that is Game of Thrones from Fantasy Flight Games and Settlers of Catan from Mayfair Games. Love those two games, all right? They are both competitive games, and when I want to compete with 2 or 3 people at a time, I'll play those games. But if I'm with someone who becomes hyper competitive when they go against games, especially when they're learning how, I actually have a friend where her and her husband at the time came over and we were playing Power Grid, which is a Settler of Catan type game. And yeah, they did not know the rules to the game, but they were gonna beat me. And I'm like, really, guys? That's how you roll? Because I don't really roll like that. But you know what? Honestly, I hope you do win. I really do. I hope. I'm not gonna throw the game, but I hope you get what you want, because I'm all about people being happy, right? But outside of those two games, Go and tabletop miniatures games, I love co-op games. Okay, I love games where it's a group of people against the system. All right, you know why? Because I'll throw it to the ground. I'm an adult and I don't trust the system. You know. Sorry, I'm having that kind of day, and I'll probably have to take a break to refill my water because my coffee is not doing well today. Anyway, so yeah, putting all that stuff out there, I will say, quite frankly, that I love co-op games. But when I give my little questionnaire, I ask, do they enjoy playing competitively or do they enjoy teamwork? Do they want games that they can just sit down and play? Or are they up for investing some time and some energy? Do they like lore or do they like mechanics? All right? All of these things right there. All of those things. God, I'm clipping over here and I'm trying to give better sound quality for my recording, so I'm gonna turn my mic down a little bit. All right, there we go. Yeah, just a little bit. Here, just turn the mic. All right, cool. Hey, Jay. Oh, what's going on? Thank you, man. Thank you very much. J0387. Welcome. We're talking about picking games that you would enjoy to play or that you can play with your people, you and your family. All right? So, when it comes down to that kind of stuff, like I said, I give the questionnaires. Do you like competitive or cooperative? Do you like lore or game mechanics? And do you just want something you could sit down and play? Or are you willing to put in some time? These are the 3 main questions. Now, when it comes to we're not talking video games, Jay. We're talking like tabletop miniatures games, board games, and role-playing games. You know, the games that you have to be in the room with someone else to play, so that if you end up talking like people do online, you might get punched in the mouth. Not to say that I've had to throw hands, but yeah. I too, though, I love fighting games. Like, my favorite video games are either casual games, resource-based games, or straight up fighting games. Okay, straight up fighting games. Like, I think I spent enough to buy a decent car in the arcade when Street Fighter 2 was new. 'Cause I'm old! Oh my god! You know, so, if people just want to sit down and play a game, I can always recommend an easy-to-play board games. All right? Always, like, a board game or a one-time buy card game. All right. When I say one-time buy card games, I'm talking things like Munchkin, Angry Unicorns, and games like that. Now, I haven't put party games in this for one reason, and I will get to that a little bit later. All right. But I'm talking about playing games for the love of playing games, and when it comes down to that, when people want to play competitive games, I promise you, there are some games out there where the competition is fierce. All right, I'm talking super fierce. Magic the Gathering, anyone? Yeah, serious. Card throwers are really, really competitive games. All right. Yeah, real talk. But there's also a lot of competitive board games and not very many competitive like PvP based role-playing games, although role-playing games can be made into PvPs. Now, it's no secret for anyone who watches this channel all the time that RPGs are my favorite because they can be so many things to so many people. If you want to do PvP, you can. If you want to run heists, you can. If you want to be a heroic warrior that saves a village or even the universe in sci-fi, you can. You can do all that with role-playing games. And they also break down into a lot of board game components and a lot of card game components, that kind of thing. So, I'm a big fan of experimentation and a big fan of group dynamics and playing the games for fun. I love having fun. But this comes down to finding out what kind of games are good for you, which is the number one question. What is your definition of fun? Is playing fun? Like, are you just happy to be there? Is your fun based on winning? Is your fun based on winning no matter the cost? Is your fun based on challenge? Okay, overcoming challenge? Or is your fun based on solving puzzles? And there's no one answer to that question for anyone. When I ask these questions in a priority sense. Like, which of these things give you the most fun? Nobody likes to lose, okay? At least not in the United States. People don't go, oh gosh, I'm really hoping I get to play with this guy because he kicks the crap out of me every single time. Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, it's there is no amount of diarrhea that makes people want to get their poop pushed in all the time. You see what I mean? So yeah, it's not really a big thing. However, I like good games. I like challenges. I also like to see things through the completion. Okay? But we'll talk about that later on in the episode when I talk about party games. Now, with that being said, if you like a game that's not a whole lot of work, that you can just sit down, play, kill some time, have a little fun, there are hundreds of games that are like that. There are deck building games. There are quick card playing games. Like, my girlfriend actually keeps a Magic deck in her purse, okay, at any time. And most of them are card games. A lot of them are board games, like the old classics, Monopoly, Scrabble, Sorry, all that stuff. But as time has gone on, a lot more games have taken a little bit more of a time commitment. As I said, I love Game of Thrones, but it takes 20 minutes to set up and about 35 minutes to break down. Almost like Risk. And, but the old school games take about 5 minutes to set up, But if you want to go deeper than that and see what is on the market today, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Zombicide is one I like. I like a lot, except I'm kind of burned out on zombies. I mean, really, that's a real thing. Yeah, I am so tired of zombies right now. I just got woe out with all the movies, the TV shows, the cartoons, the short stories, the comic books, just name it. Zombies are everywhere. And I'm just like, can I get a break from zombies? Now, one of the things I love is superhero based stuff. Okay, anything that's based on superheroes, I like that stuff. Although I'm not a big fan of Star Wars, let's say, and I bring that up because I like superhero stuff because the line between good guy and bad guy is clearly delineated. Very clearly. Like, you got heroes, you got villains, and that's it. No complex narratives, no nothing like that. But if you just want to check out a few games that you can just sit down and play, thank you, Daryl. Most of them in this day and age come in the form of cards. The king of sit down and play games with the people you got is Uno. All right, we're talking $12. Keep it in your back pocket. Hey, we're sitting in line at the DMV. Anybody want to play Uno? Hey, we're waiting to get into this concert. Hey, I got my Uno deck. Who's down? That kind of thing. I love any game that you have like that. And Uno is the jam. Like, you can take that to your cousin's house, to your mama's house. You could take that to any friends. And it's a game you can even play by yourself, I spend a lot of time at parties, and I don't like parties. So, yeah, but you can always bust out Uno, and people are like, oh, man, did you just bust out Uno? Shoot, deal me in, bruh. So that's always a good thing. But other games I can recommend are things like the Settlers of Catan, which does not take a lot of setup. And it's a good way to spend the night. Also, Game of Thrones, although it takes 20 minutes. Other things like... essentially most playing board games. Flux. What's up, clever little vixen? I thought I was the only one. Yeah, Flux is the jam. How do you play it? Look, when I'm at a game store and somebody brings up Flux and wants to ask, I'm like, you know what? I have a sample copy in my pocket. I'll just show you how to play a game, and you tell me whether or not you think it's fun. And it's hard to say how to play Flux because the rules are simple. Play a card, take a card, and then read what the cards on the table says. That's it. However, every game is different because the cards change up your winning conditions. They change up play. It's like Uno on meth, okay? It's just, it's up there. Or should I say on product? I don't want to get flagged. But yeah, it's Uno on steroids. And I am a big fan of Flux. Now, if people are willing to commit some time, all right, there are, like, it all depends on how much time and what you want to do with your time. Now, real talk, if you guys have been watching the channel, y'all know I love tabletop miniatures games. All right, it reminds me of playing with army men and action figures and stuff. It is great. However, they take a lot of work. Okay, even one as simple as HeroClix, where you don't even have to glue together or paint the miniatures, they do have a lot of rules, a lot of combinations, and the setup is actually super easy. It's a poster and you pull out your action figures, but it can get pretty far in depth. Okay, and that's the thing. I love saying that millennials and Zoomers are smarter than us. All right. And when I say that, I really mean that. They grew up, or you guys grew up in a time where complexity was more common than it was with those of us older folks. I remember sitting down trying to teach someone HeroClix maybe a few years ago, and I'm like, look, color plus location equals power. That was it. That says what you can do. But you need a freaking key card to learn what everything does. It's all wacky. All right? It's all really wacky. So there's a lot to do and a lot to be said about all those things. But games like... Now, one, I don't tend to recommend games. I don't tend to recommend games from Games Workshop because they are a real financial and chronological investment. However, if you got the cheddar, I recommend tabletop skirmish games. Okay, the difference between skirmish games and war games is amount of figures. All right, a tabletop skirmish game tends to be a competitive game where each player has 5 to 10 figures. Now the downside is that you have to put these figures together yourself and paint them yourself most of the time, which requires the investment into the game with the rules, investment into figures, investment into paints and brushes and primers, and then after all that, you have to take that time, which takes a week to a month, depending on how detail oriented you are, or in my words, how much you care. I don't. And then you sit down and you play the games. And I find that when people come over to my place, I recommend games from Osprey, like Rangers of Shadow Deep, or Gaslands, or Frostgrave. Or Sturgrave, because you know me and that sci-fi, or games from One Page Rules, specifically Grimdark Firefight or Age of Fantasy Skirmish. Same game, different settings, different toys. We have some battle reports here of me playing the One Page Rule stuff, and the rules are simple, which is, you read the card, you roll the dice, you see whether or not you hit them, and then you move on and you try to accomplish a goal. And I'm a big fan of that, but I also find that I enjoy building little sets, which is why on Hobby Hall we're normally crafting something, right? But a lot of people ain't into that. And I'm like, you don't need to be into it. Just go down to the Salvation Army and buy a couple of doll houses and then spray paint them. That's seriously where I'm at. And of course, at the top of my list are tabletop role-playing games. The easiest tabletop role-playing game to get into is, of course, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. That is what rules the market right now. In fact, 3 of the 4 games that rule the market right now is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for the tabletop role player, Warhammer 40K for the tabletop miniature player, what else? Magic the Gathering for the card players. And then for the board gamers, I don't really know what's super hot right now. That would be a DW question on Thursday. J0387 says, would I ever stream one of my favorite games? You'd like to see some of these cool games. Well, you're in luck, because Friday is when I tend to play the tabletop miniatures games or look through card games and stuff like that. And I stream 2 D&D games right here on the channel every other Monday and Wednesday nights. Those are both the D&D games, being Warp Tumblers on Wednesday and Warp Tumbler C24 every other Monday. And C24 is an all-woman game, so the gameplay style is a little different, and I'm having fun with it, and I'm learning more stuff as a DM that's new and refreshing, if I can say. But yeah, now let's change the subject real quick and get into how do you choose a tabletop role-playing game, because there are many, and they have many different mechanics. They come down to a lot of different things, but the major things they come down to are setting, tone, and focus. Okay, those are the 3 major things. I will explain. All right. The 2 most popular tabletop role-playing games that there are on the market globally are Dungeons & Dragons and Call of Cthulhu. Now, why am I contrasting these 2? Because they have contrast settings. Dungeons & Dragons is medieval fantasy, or what we like to call Tolkien-esque. Okay, if it's based on stuff in Lord of the Rings, then it's probably in D&D. We got your elves, your dwarves, the character classes like rangers and wizards and all that stuff. That is in D&D. Call of Cthulhu. Oh, yeah, sorry. And it's also an adventure-based game. All right, adventure, yay, adventure. And that means we go on a quest. Walking down the road today, doo-dah. I'm on a quest, and I'm trying to rescue the princess, get the loot, kill the monster, go home, spend the loot on more booze until I go broke, and then I have to take another quest to go out there and do it all over again. Sometimes it's in the mountains, sometimes it's in the forest, sometimes it's on a pirate ship, but that's pretty much the whole thing. Now, on the other side of that coin is Call of Cthulhu. Okay, that game is generally set in the 1920s. All right, the 1920s and on the East Coast, and it is a horror investigation game where you don't have superpowers, you don't have magic that's as easy to wield as you would in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a lot of puzzle solving and investigation. Okay. So you're not going to be throwing fireballs, and your character might go crazy and end up trying to claw out their own eyes. Real talk, all right? And the question is, would you consider this stuff fun? A lot of people do. I do. And a lot of people don't. So when it comes down to choosing what kind of games you like to play, question 1, are you more willing to be competitive or cooperative? Second, are you more into fantasy, sci-fi, horrors, or and this is a question that I really ask people when they ask me, hey, I want to get into tabletop role-playing, where do I start? I ask, what are their 3 favorite movies? Okay? Because that will say a lot. If people love Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and stuff like that, then they're more of a D&D player. If the Marvel Cinematic Universe is more their thing, then they can play the superhero games like Marvel or DC or Mutants and Masterminds. If they are into slasher movies or atmospheric horror or psychological horror, like Silence of the Lambs, Friday the 13th, Dagon, then of course I put them over to Call of Cthulhu. And if they're into things like Ocean's 11, The Great Escape, then I can point them over at stuff like Blades in the Dark. If they like heist movies, there are games for heist movies. I love noir. I love noir detective stuff, so I do tend to lean toward things like the Dresden Files, Call of Cthulhu, things like that. But I play a lot of D&D. Because I have the deepest bench of people who are willing to play D&D. Okay? But guess what? If Blade Runner is one of your favorite movies, there are games out there like Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, and Paranoia that fall right into that genre. So the question is, what's your favorite genre? What world would you like to live in? And if your answer is Star Trek, yes, there's a Star Trek RPG. There's actually an RPG out there for almost every major property. Second, I ask, what about games do they find, or what about stories do they find fun? Now, this is where we get into tone, or this is where we get into focus, all right? Now, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I really do. But Dungeons and Dragons has a hierarchy of what it's in, all right? And when I say that hierarchy, D&D is about adventure, but it's half actually it's about a third exploration and 2/3 combat. Okay, that game is to get out there and play stuff. Sneakers, Push, and Mortal Kombat. Yep, there you go. World of Darkness is directly for you, Daryl. As you would also like Call of Cthulhu and Blades in the Dark. Okay, Blades in the Dark is fantasy-based, but it's all about the heist, and it has a mechanic to where the players pause the game to have a flashback scene, circa Sneakers or Ocean's 11, as to how they set up this thing that gets them out of this situation right now. And so we're not going to spend the whole hour doing this, guys. All right? Yeah, Labyrinth, Legend, and Singing in the Rain. You're a D&D player. Okay? You're a D&D player and you like bards. All right? That's just what you like. You like high fantasy with a whole lot of weird stuff. You like going through mazes, and you like solving puzzles and having an interesting amount of casting, and of course you like musical numbers, you know. And yeah, Labyrinth did get it, TTRPG. So yeah, but there's also the focus. D&D is focused a lot on combat. Most of the spells that you're gonna get. Now there's a lot of utility spells, but the lion's breath of spells you get in D&D are all about making evil stop being evil by way of force. All right? Even the bard, the performer and the talker of the group, has spells like Vicious Mockery and Control Person that do damage. All right? But then you get stuff like World of Darkness, which is based primarily on social interactions and interacting with the world. There is combat, but there's a whole lot more mind control, dominate. You know, most of the magic spells most of the magical abilities that people get in the World of Darkness in most of the games, and there are many, revolve around location, identifying supernatural things, and dealing with the world in which they live in. Okay, except for Werewolf and Hunter. Okay, those games is all about the bodies. All about the pow pow. You know, it's all about throwing hands, shooting guns. That's what that stuff is about. Vampire the Masquerade or Vampire the Requiem has a bunch of that stuff, but it plays a lot more into politics and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that these things can't be there, but every game's focus is set specifically into some of these places. Like the game Traveler from Mongoose, all about space exploration. There is combat, and there's ship-to-ship combat, and there's aliens. But really, when you look at the game mechanics, it's all about second star to the right, straight on till morning. Let's see what's out there, and let's do some stuff, you know. So that is a really big thing. Okay. Now, real talk. The third part is tone. All right, and the tone is always set by the players at the table. What do I mean, tone? Is this going to be a serious game, a dark game, a comedic game? You know, are we going to go for wacky, or, as the youngsters like to say, derp? Or are we going to be super serious and grizzled? Most of these games that are out there are based on something, but most players... Alright, so real talk. Alright, this is real talk time. We live in the 21st century, and most of us live in the United States of America. Alright? Which means awkward and embarrassed weighs on us more than anything else. And what we've learned in our culture is when awkwardness or embarrassment comes about, it's a lot easier to live with people laughing with you than it is with people laughing at you. And this is coming from somebody who grew up in the hood, who was getting clowned all the time for everything. Okay? Everything. Not everything. Everything. Alright? Always getting clowned. I still get clowned. But That means a lot of people are going to fall into the literary tool of bathos. You know bathos, well, good bathos, Spider-Man, bad bathos, everything written by Joss Whedon and half of Deadpool, which is telling a joke to break the tension, okay? Sometimes you need tension. Sometimes tension sets the tone, okay? And this is coming from someone who studied and wants to be a punch-up writer eventually. But the tone of 9/11 was very, very serious. 3,000 people died at one day. Bathos is looking at the towers falling, going, 10th floor, ladies lingerie, 9th floor, hair care products, 7th floor, men's slacks. You know, I mean, it takes away the tension and it takes away the seriousness, and it's a tool that needs to be wielded with more expert hands. But like I said, a lot of the times we do fall into bathos when we're trying to avoid embarrassment. Growing up, learning to be an actor on stage, we learned that awkward bathos with one phrase and one body motion. Waka waka and... Okay, so, hey, my joke didn't land. Waka waka waka! You know, and when it comes to a lot of games, most games, except Call of Cthulhu, can be set with a comedic overtone if you're going to do a satire game. One of my favorite satire games is Paranoia. It is an outer space game in a dystopian future where you will be executed. This is going to happen. The character that you spent hours and hours and hours making is going to be killed by the authorities, which is why you get 5 clones of that character. Okay, so you just go through over and over and over again. It's funny. The Warhammer 40k universe used to be satire. It's still technically satire for legal reasons, but you know. But the thing that determines what is serious or the tone of what it comes down to is the players. And that's something that has to be talked about and agreed upon. Now, I'll get into the agreements and paradigmic problems tomorrow. But I'll give you just a little taste of it. Alright, just a little taste of it. Paradigm is the way that we see the world in total. This is where we get, no, it's about this. This thing here means one thing and it cannot be interpreted any other way. Alright? Greed is human nature. Period. That is a paradigmic statement. Okay? And people love digging into their paradigms. And when that comes down, they tend to, I guess you can say, dig in real deep and just marry themselves to an idea. Like, it's a wizard. It can do anything. Well, within the context of the game, it can't. Well, it's a god. It's supposed to be able to do anything. Truth be told, in monotheism, yeah, the one God can do everything, including create a rock that it can't lift, but it just won't. However, most games and stuff like that, most settings come in polytheistic, and gods, little g's, are very, 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 very limited in their scope of power. You know? So yeah, when this is supposed to be funny, you know, when you have a lot of people that are supposed to do stuff that's funny and stuff that isn't, that gets a little wacky. Okay? Now, keep all of these things in mind when it comes to choosing your own game. What is it that you like? What is it that you would like to experience? Some people, example, I love murder hobos. I love people that go into a D&D game or any kind of role-playing game and wants to be covered in blood and get all the highest body count possible because they need some sort of catharsis. I love it. However, that's not always the game that I'm aiming to run. And when that's the case, I have to let my players know, dude, I'm not running a murder hobo game. I'm running a full-fledged balanced story, okay? I'm serious. I'm running a balanced story, and know that your murder hoboing is going to come with negative consequences for everybody around you, because those are the kinds of worlds that I create. All right, a little bit of realism, a whole lot of fantasy stuff, or a whole lot of TV tropes. Because I grew up in the 80s, okay? I had my own key that I lost all the time, and I watched a lot of TV. So yeah. So what kind of a game would you like to play? Would you like it competitive? Would you like it cooperative? And if you want a cooperative, what kind of people would you like to cooperate with? All of those are major things. And guess what? If you can find a brick and mortar game store near you, the good ones, the one that's in the back of the deck green book, the people there will be happy to walk you through stuff. They might not always be skilled, but they would be happy to do so. Now let's get to the elephant in the room while I'm talking about bathos, and that's party games. Solar Grey, the cinematic sorcerer, not the opinion of Back in the Deck Productions, but Solar Grey, the cinematic sorcerer, hate party games. I cannot stand them. Okay, I really can't. At least I despise 21st century party games. Okay, now you want to play some Pictionary or some charades, always down. But there is one party game or one party game style that came out that I cannot stand. The original popular game that did it, I kind of deal. Okay, I deal with it. I even have it, and I'm willing to play it from time to time. I don't mind that. But its direct offspring makes me want to put cigarettes out in my eye. Okay, the one I like is Apples to Apples. I very much like Apples to Apples. Okay, but I can't stand Cards Against Humanity. Okay, I cannot stand it, and here's why. There is nothing wrong with the game as it is. It's just the only people I tend to be able to play Cards Against Humanity or even Apples to Apples with, but mostly Cards Against Humanity with, are people who are currently getting high and drinking. I live in California, so weed is legal. And I don't smoke weed and I don't drink alcohol. So I'm the sober guy in the room trying to play a game with people that don't have many rules, doesn't have a really big winning condition, except make the person whose turn it is laugh. In a room full of people on pot. Ugh. And my sense of humor is already a little odd, but when I'm the sober guy, and when I say the sober guy, I don't mean I'm clean and sober and I look down on you. But when I'm the one that's not on that frequency, I don't have any fun. Not to mention, a game of Cards Against Humanity, I have never played to completion because people get high and then they wander off. And this is one of the things. That I'm really not a big fan of. Okay, because again, they're having a party that I'm invited to do it, but I have to what's the term? I have to compromise who I am and what I do in order to grok with them, and I'm just not willing to do that. Let's see, Neon Arlecchino is Red Flag. Sometime it's the dating version of Cards Against Humanity where you try and make the perfect date for a buddy before the person next to you gives them a horrible trait. I've had many people who just, I'm willing to give it a shot, but that's not a very good sale. Hey, I'm going to make you the perfect significant other. Keep in mind, I'm 45, so most of my friends and I are married or in very long-term relationships. So, Is one of the cards, does this make me look fat? Because yeah, not really a great selling point. I'm gonna make the perfect mate, but if you make someone who isn't like your significant other, there may be some prices to pay later. But if you're into party games and stuff like that, cool. Just know that if you actually want to play, you might actually have to have a party for it. And since I'm more of a gathering kind of guy, not really a party type of guy, unless it's a party. Like, I'll do a festival, but I don't really like parties. You know, like 4 to 6 people, I'm good. Anything more than that, I'm just like, here we go. Everything's breaking into cliques. No one's mingling, and the 80s lied to me. There's no dancing, even though I don't dance. At least I don't dance for free. So yeah, but like I was saying, when it comes down to it, there's one more factor that we'll get into a little bit later, and that is complexity of game mechanics. All right, that is a really big one. But I've talked your guys' ear off for about an hour. So if you got any other questions or any other comments, I'm leaving an invitation. Oh, wait, that's not that. That's to the merch store. I am so terrible. I really am. Let's see here. I need to find my invitation to the Discord server, which means I gotta go way higher up into the chatty tat tat. Is that? Nope, that's not that. That's here we go. Yes. Yeah, let me just get that there. And yeah, copy. Paste. Yeah, there we go. And now, do a little backspacing. Cause yeah. Alright. Wow. I did a lot. So let me try that again. I wanted to leave an invitation to the Discord server in there for you guys. I think this is it. Yes. People have been blowing up my phone all day trying to sell me stuff, and I'm like, don't y'all know I'm broke? God. So I'm on the air. I love it. I have friends that like to call, and I'm like, dude, I'm on the air. And if you were actually watching the show, you would see that. Anyway, so yeah, I left an invitation to the Discord server right here, and I'm putting another one right here in the YouTube. There we go. So if you guys got any questions or comments, hit me up on the Discord server. I'm pretty much always reachable there. And if you have any questions about what games you would like, or you just want to talk about, hey, that's one time I played a game and I have this one character, talk to us in the general chat on the Discord server. We love hearing your stories. So I want to give a major shout out to some of my people in the chat, the talking ones today, such as Clever Little Vixen, Neon Arlecchino, Daryl Couch, and of course our new folks, J number that came over from Nerd Soul. Thank you so much for coming in. Yeah, J0387. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, your disabilities, or your budget, you can tell them to take any of them cards they're trying to pull on you and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Grade, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow on the dark side of the room.